The day started like any other, grabbing a coffee from the corner gas station, the kind of routine that keeps a guy grounded in a chaotic world. I'm Marcus, 39, a welder by trade, and I just finished a long shift. The Pennsylvania rain was coming down in sheets, blurring the windshield as I drove my beat-up sedan home. Then, out of nowhere, a jacked-up SUV barreled through a red light like it owned the road. I remember the screech of tires, the jolt of impact, and then nothing, just black. Next thing I knew, I was in a hospital bed, hooked to machines that beeped like some sci-fi soundtrack. Tubes snaked into my arms, and a ventilator hissed rhythmically. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't even open my eyes. But I could hear. It was like being locked in a coffin with the lid cracked just enough to let sound seep through. The doctors called it locked-in syndrome later, but at the time I didn't have a name for it, just terror. I'd been out for days, maybe a week, when I surfaced enough to catch voices. My wife, Lena, 34, was there, her familiar perfume cutting through the sterile hospital smell. We'd been married 9 years, no kids, which felt like a blessing now. She was talking to a doctor, Dr. Patel. I'd learn his name later, about my condition. At first, it was standard stuff. Brain scans, recovery odds, the kind of jargon you tune out on TV dramas. Lena's voice was soft, shaky, like she'd been crying. I wanted to reach out, tell her I was still here, but my body wouldn't budge. Then the conversation shifted. Dr. Patel mentioned long-term care, how it could be months, maybe years before I'd improve, if I ever did. Lena went quiet, and when she spoke again, her tone was different, cool, detached, like she was negotiating a car deal. Look, I'm still young, you know? 34. We don't have kids tying us down. If he's just gonna stay like this, hooked up to machines, maybe it's better to, pull the plug. I can't be stuck forever. I could find someone else. The words hit like a freight train. 9 years, birthdays, fights, quiet nights on the couch, and she was ready to ditch me like a broken appliance. Dr. Patel didn't respond right away. The silence was thick, heavy with his shock. When he finally spoke, his voice was tight, professional but laced with disgust. Mrs. Carter, that's not a decision we make lightly, or at all, without clear directives. He's only been unresponsive a short time. We need more data. Lena pushed back, muttering about quality of life, and how Marcus wouldn't want this. But I was screaming inside, I do want this. I want to live. Dr. Patel shut it down, saying they'd talk later, and their footsteps faded. I lay there, trapped, replaying her words. The machines kept beeping, indifferent to the fact that my world had just shattered. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more incredible stories. Lying there, a prisoner in my own skull, I had nothing but time to think. The hospital sounds became my soundtrack. Beeping monitors, the squeak of nurses' shoes, the occasional cough from another room. I couldn't move a muscle, but my mind was racing, picking apart the last 9 years with Lena. Marcus Carter, welder, husband, now a guy whose wife wanted him gone. How did it come to this? We'd met at a bar in Philly, her laughing at some dumb joke I made about the Eagles. She was 25 then, all sharp wit and bright eyes, and I was 30, steady but not exciting. We got married quick, too quick maybe, but it worked, or so I thought. No kids, thank God, because that would have made this mess uglier. Looking back, there were signs I'd brushed off. Last year, she'd nagged me to up my life insurance, saying, "What if something happens to you?" I'd laughed it off. "I'm not going anywhere, babe." She'd smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Then there were the times she'd snap when I'd talk about saving for a cabin upstate, like the idea of growing old together annoyed her. Small stuff, easy to ignore when you're in love, or just blind. In those first few days after the crash, Lena's visits felt normal. She'd sit by my bed, her hand on mine, sniffling like the dutiful wife. I'd hear her whisper, "Come back to me, Marcus," and I'd want to believe it. But then came Monday, the day everything changed. I was drifting in that half-aware fog when her voice cut through again, this time with Dr. Patel. After her pull-the-plug bombshell, she started coming less often. When she did, it was different. She'd fidget, her chair scraping the floor like she couldn't wait to leave. Once, I caught her muttering into her phone, something about Sky, and making decisions. Sky. Who the hell was Sky? A friend? A lover? My gut twisted, but I couldn't ask, couldn't confront her. The worst was knowing she'd sit there, playing the part, holding my hand, sighing dramatically, while I knew what she really wanted. One time I heard her texting, the soft tap-tap-tap of her nails on the screen. She laughed under her breath, then said, Yes, soon, to no one in the room. Soon what? My funeral? My replacement? I wanted to scream, to rip the tubes out and grab her by the shoulders, but all I could do was listen, helpless as the pieces fell into place. Then a flicker of hope. Late one night, I felt a twitch in my left hand, just a tiny spark, but it was mine. Over the next day it spread, fingers curling, then my wrist. I couldn't tell anyone yet, couldn't risk Lena knowing I was coming back. Not until I figured out what to do with the knife she'd stabbed into my trust. For now I stayed silent, listening, waiting, and planning. The day I fully woke up felt like breaking the surface after drowning. 1 minute, I was trapped in that suffocating void, the next my eyes fluttered open to blinding fluorescent lights. The machines were still there, humming away, but now I could move, slowly, stiffly, like a rusted hinge. My throat burned as a nurse pulled the ventilator tube out, and I rasped my first word, water. The room erupted, doctors swarming, nurses scribbling notes. Dr. Patel called it a miracle recovery, said most folks don't bounce back from locked-in syndrome so fast. I wanted to laugh. Miracle, sure, but it came with a curse. Lena wasn't there when it happened. She texted my sister, Jenna, that she had a nail appointment at 6 p.m., prime time for a coma vigil, right? Jenna, though, was by my side, her eyes red from crying and lack of sleep. She'd been crashing at a motel nearby since the crash, dropping everything to be there. Marcus, oh my God, she sobbed, squeezing my hand. I managed a weak smile, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying Lena's hospital room betrayal. I didn't tell Jenna, or anyone, what I'd heard. Instead, I croaked out, don't remember much, letting them think the coma wiped my slate clean. Safer that way. When Lena finally showed up, she was all tears and hugs, her mascara streaking like a bad soap opera. I was so scared, babe, she said, clinging to me. I nodded, forcing a smile, but inside I was ice. Her voice, soft now warm, clashed with the cold, flat tone I'd heard days ago. Pull the plug. I can find someone else. She didn't know I knew, and I wasn't about to tip my hand. Not yet. That night, alone in my hospital bed, I called my buddy Theo. We'd grown up together, him the tech geek to my grease-stained welder. Man, I need a favor, I whispered, voice still scratchy. Something's off with Lena. Can you help me dig? Theo didn't hesitate. Say no more. What you need, documents? Phone records. I rattled off a list, bank statements, insurance papers, anything he could pull. He promised to swing by tomorrow with his laptop. We'll figure this out, Marcus, he said, and I believed him. Lena kept up the act over the next few days, bringing me Jell-O, fussing over my pillows. I watched her, studying every move. The way she'd glance at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. The way she'd pause before answering questions about the crash, like she was scripting it. Dr. Patel discharged me after 2 weeks, saying I'd need physical therapy, but I was damn lucky. Lucky. Yeah, lucky to be alive, and lucky to know the truth. As Lena drove me home, chattering about how happy she was, I stared out the window, already plotting my next move. The game had changed, and she didn't even know I was playing. Home didn't feel like home anymore. Our little brick house in the suburbs, bought 5 years ago with a joint mortgage and big dreams, now felt like a stage, and I was the actor pretending everything was fine. Lena had hung a welcome home banner over the fireplace, the kind you grab cheap at Walmart, all glitter and forced cheer. She'd been busy since I got discharged, hovering like a nervous bird, cooking my favorite steak and potatoes, rubbing my shoulders, asking if I needed anything. You're my hero, Marcus, she'd say, her smile too wide. I'd nod, mumble thanks, and watch her like a hawk. But I wasn't blind anymore. The little things I'd ignored for years were screaming now. Her phone was always face down on the counter, buzzing with texts she'd check when she thought I was napping. She'd started locking it with a new password, changed it last month, she said, for security. Then there were the work calls at odd hours, 10 p.m., midnight, her stepping outside to whisper into the night. She'd come back smelling faintly of cigarette smoke, even though she'd quit years ago. I didn't call her out. I just filed it away. Theo came over that first week, hauling his PS4 under the guise of keeping me company. Lena bought it, chatting him up about Call of Duty while he set up in the living room. Under the coffee table, he slipped me a tiny Amazon security cam. Records to your phone, he whispered. Just in case. We hooked it up when Lena ran to the store for milk, her excuse to get out, I figured. That night, I caught her pacing the living room, texting furiously. The cam didn't catch the screen, but I heard her mutter, "Dax," under her breath. Dax. Another name to add to the list with Sky. The real kicker came when I checked our cell bill online. Thank God for Theo's hacking skills. Hundreds of messages to a number I didn't recognize, tagged under, Dax, Gym. She joined a CrossFit place last year, said it was for stress. Apparently, Dax was part of the package. She'd also started using Snapchat, at 34. I almost laughed. Who the hell uses that past 25 unless they're hiding something? Then she dropped a bomb. Over dinner, burnt chicken, her specialty, she sighed dramatically. Marcus, maybe we should sell the house. The stairs could be tough with your recovery. Bullshit. Dr. Patel said I'd be fine in a few months, and we'd pick this place for its single story. She wanted cash, not convenience. I nodded, said, maybe, and watched her eyes light up. Inside I was boiling. That night, I opened a new bank account at a credit union, moved a chunk of my savings, slowly, quietly, and emailed a divorce lawyer Theo recommended. Lena thought she was playing me, but I was rewriting the script. The cam kept rolling and so did I. The house was a pressure cooker and I was the lid holding it all in. Every day, I played the part, grunted through physical therapy in the living room, let Lena fuss over me with her fake smiles, nodded at her endless chatter about our future. But behind the scenes I was building a fortress of proof. Theo was my lifeline, sneaking over with his laptop while Lena was at work. Those mysterious shifts that stretched longer each week. We'd sit on the couch, him tapping away, me pretending to watch football as he pulled threads from the mess of our life. First came the financials. I'd given Theo my logins, bank, insurance, everything, and he dug up gold. Lena had upped my life insurance policy 6 months ago, forging my signature on the dotted line. The payout? $500,000. She told me it was just in case, but now I saw the case, was me flatlining. Then there were the texts. Theo cracked into our cell provider's records, don't ask how, and found hundreds of messages to Dax stretching back a year. Snippets he pulled from her cloud backups were worse. If something happens, we're set, she'd written last spring. He's clueless. My hands shook reading that. Jenna, my sister, came through too. She'd been recording audio in my hospital room after noticing Lena acting off, whispering to someone on the phone, leaving abruptly. One clip caught Lena and her friend Mara, Dax's sister, I'd bet, talking when they thought no one was around. Once he's gone, we cash out and split, Lena said, casual as ordering takeout. Mara laughed. I saved that file to 3 different drives, my stomach churning. I got smarter. Started a private Google Drive, uploading every scrap, texts, audio, bank statements. Took photos of the house's valuables, TV, my tools, her jewelry, time-stamped for proof. Opened a burner email for the lawyer, a guy named Vince who promised discretion. Lena kept pushing her narrative though. One night she sat me down, tears in her eyes. This has been so hard on me, Marcus. Seeing you like that, maybe we need a fresh start. She meant without me, I knew it. I just hugged her, said, we'll figure it out, and felt her relax, fooled again. The plan solidified when Vince called. Lunch with Theo, I told Lena, and she packed me a turkey sandwich, oblivious it was for a meeting to end her game. Vince laid it out. Keep quiet, gather more, file when the time's right. That night, I changed the Wi-Fi password. Petty, sure, but watching her fumble with Netflix felt good. She gave up, scrolled TikTok instead while I uploaded another hospital clip to the cloud. The noose was tightening and she didn't even feel it. Tomorrow I'd plant a seed, mention my sharp memory to her mom, see how she squirmed. For now, I slept with one eye open, counting the days. The morning of the reckoning dawned gray and cold, the kind of day that begs for coffee and quiet. I'd been up since 5 a.m., nerves buzzing like a live wire, scrolling TikTok at the kitchen table to look normal. Lena stumbled in at 7, fresh off her night shift, a lie I'd stopped believing, her hair messy, clutching a Starbucks cup. Caramel macchiato, her usual splurge. She dropped her bag, started griping about traffic on the turnpike, same old routine. I let her ramble, waiting for the right beat. Then I looked up, calm as stone, and said, I heard you, Lena. That day in the hospital. Her face went white like someone flipped a switch. The cup froze halfway to her mouth, a drip of caramel sliding down the side. What are you talking about? She stammered, voice high and thin. I didn't blink. Pulled out my phone, hit play on Jenna's recording, Lena's voice cold and clear. Pull the plug. I can find someone else. Then the kicker, her chat with Mara. Once he's gone, we cash out. The kitchen went dead silent, just the hum of the fridge and her shallow breathing. She tried denial first. That's not what I meant, Marcus. You're twisting it. I raised an eyebrow, slid the phone across the table with screenshots. Her text to Dax, plotting months before the crash. Explain this then. Anger flared next. She slammed the cup down, coffee splashing. You spied on me? How dare you? I stayed cool, let her rage. Then came bargaining. Baby, we can fix this. I was stressed, I didn't mean it. Tears followed, mascara streaking, but I'd seen her crocodile act before. Finally she crumpled, staring at the floor, defeat sinking in. I'm done, Lena, I said, voice steady. Divorce papers are filed. I've moved out, most of my stuff's gone. Her head snapped up, eyes wild. What? When? I smirked. While you were at work. Oh, and the joint account's closed. Good luck at Starbucks tomorrow. She lunged for her phone, tried logging in. Nothing. I drained it legally, Vince's advice, leaving her with crumbs. She screamed, threw the cup at the wall, brown streaks dripping like her unraveling life. I stood, grabbed my jacket. You've got 30 days to get out. My name's on the deed, thanks Dad. She lunged at me, sobbing, but I stepped back. Don't touch me. I walked out, her wails echoing behind me. Theo picked me up in his truck. My sedan was toast from the crash, and we drove to his place. My phone buzzed, 15 missed calls from her already. By noon it was 50. Her mom texted, confused, I blocked her. Mara showed up at the house later, ring cam caught it, but I was long gone. The board was mine now and Lena was checkmated. The days after D-Day were a storm I watched from a safe distance. Lena didn't take losing quietly. Her phone assaults hit 92 calls that first day, then 60 the next, voicemails alternating between begging and cursing. I blocked her, but she pivoted to Instagram, posting sob stories about being abandoned, with pics of our empty living room. Her followers ate it up, poor Lena, the martyr, until her lies started cracking. Her mom, Carla, called me 3 days in, not to yell but to spill. Lena had spun a tale of me ditching her out of the blue, cleaning out our cash. Carla only learned the truth when she caught Lena drunk, sobbing to her sister about the hospital plot. She's a liar, Marcus, Carla said, voice shaky. I'm done with her. Turns out, Lena's mess ran deeper than I'd guessed. Theo pulled our old credit card statements. $19,000 in debt she'd hidden, all designer shoes and spa days. She'd never checked balances, assuming I'd keep us afloat. When Carla cut her off, no more rent money after believing her BS. Lena's world imploded. Jenna texted me updates. Lena's apartment application tanked, her credit a dumpster fire, and she couldn't scrape a deposit without my paycheck. Karma didn't just knock, it kicked the door down. I'd been crashing at Theo's, a spare room with a futon and his ancient Xbox. It wasn't much, but it beat the eggshells I'd walked on with Lena. My stuff, tools, clothes, that damn coffee maker, was stashed in his garage, moved bit by bit while she was out. I hit the gym with him, cleared by Dr. Patel to lift light, and started cooking, real meals, not her burnt disasters. Sleep came easier too, no more waking to her midnight whispers with Dax. The lawyer, Vince, pushed the divorce through. Lena tried crashing Theo's place twice, caught on his doorbell cam, first crying then yelling. I watched from inside, silent, letting her perform for no one. Her mom called again a week later. Lena got denied another lease, broke, crashing on Mara's couch now. Carla was kicking her out by month's end. She needs to grow up. I shrugged. Not my problem. I got approved for a studio apartment. Small, cheap, mine. Signed the lease yesterday, moving in next week. Theo's dragging me to IKEA this weekend. Pray for me and those hex keys. I kept the coffee maker, non-negotiable, and booked a solo trip to Asheville next month. Mountains, beer, no Lena whining about the cold. Small wins, but they felt huge. Some nights, that hospital memory still hits. Her voice, flat and final, wanting me gone. It stings at 3 a.m., but mostly I'm good. Lighter. Like I'd been hauling a boulder and finally dropped it. Lena's flailing out there, financially flatlined, and I'm building something new. Funny how life flips. Her fresh start became mine.